Good day. May I present to you my reflection about the work of our great national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal, entitled The Philippines a Century Hence. The point of view of my reflection is all about the Philippines after a century, or what will be the Philippines after a century, by concluding to the work of Rizal, The Philippines a Century Hence. In the article that Rizal's work, me, myself, and I noticed that the answer of Rizal in his work, well, before that, Rizal in his essay exposed the several issues that concern our country: the abuses of human rights, the lack of freedom of the press, and the lack of representation in the Spanish Cortes. Rizal notes several possibilities of what will be the Philippines after a century. First, on top of that, is the Philippines would stay Spanish colony provided its citizens receive not only the rights and privilege of the citizens of the Spanish crown, but also the inherent rights of a human being. Second, is that the Philippines will inevitably rise in revolt against Spain if continuously exploited and abused several historical events as example. And lastly, that the Philippines may be conquered by other nations after Spain's presence in the country is extinguished. Well, for me, these are the factors that overview the predictions of Rizal in his work, The Philippines a Century Hence. Well, this is my own perceptions of Rizal's work. History repeats itself. History may have repeated itself 100 times now, but today's battle was not the same battle our forefathers were fighting before. It is now a message within an intention of giving a warning. The colonization by the Spaniards, which started 4 centuries ago, is now parallel to the colonization of foreign minds of our own countrymen. Let us always use our minds for thinking what will be the rest of what wrongdoing things done by the Spaniards to us. Our great Filipino Dr. Jose Rizal has left me astounded with his achievements since his childhood. He was an artisan, a man of knowledge and wonder, a linguist, a gentleman, a master in every craft, not to mention his hundred of achievements and profession. With a miracle of how he had attained all of this in his short lifespan, there could be none left that cannot be attributed to him, unless he could have been a woman once in his life. Yet the most unusual title I heard given to him by a handful of people really caught my attention. The Great Rizal was also but a Nostradamus in making. Then he was a doctor and an artisan. Next, he was a great psychic, a seer, and even a prophet. Interesting it was. These articles he wrote in La Solidaridad gave me a quiet stir. I was pondering, it is true. Is this the article that shall say predicted the future of the Philippines in his years? I was ready to plunge into his mind, into his precious intellect, ready to accept whatever pieces of fact that will make him our national hero, more of a human being that he was. I read the article. It is quite impressed of the heavy title as it summarized what made the whole thing is all about. However, to tell frankly, the lengthy article didn't give me a feeling of rush excitement. It did, if not, give me a sense of historical nostalgia. I was caught up by what he wrote that in order to read the destiny of a people, it is necessary to open the book of its past. It was a strong argument and needed a logical point of view. As much was said, The Philippines was a battleground of the clash of cultures, of blending of races, and of pitiful bloodshed. Rizal, in his own words, painted a picture of our past clearly. The depth of his writings was proof of much grief and much work. He could have overreacted in his telling story, but the next generation Filipinos understood the hardships of their forefathers. It can be considered that the people had enough war and that they never stopped hoping for happiness and the right to live in their own contentment. What supplied Rizal of the heart for passion for his country became his primary mission to save from the terror and tyranny of the cruel Spaniards. Rizal was a son of liberalism. Though he did not approve of much violence, he chose to be vigilant by means of his ways of writing. With his researches on world history, he understood the pattern of cause and effect and how it has affected and changed the whole world. The facts and figures of one's country's history could be a trend that a country like the Philippines may take course. In this text, I think that the idea of Rizal being a prophet is vague anymore, since science and logic were intervening. His allusion of the past Philippines, the story of Sancho Panza, gave me the spark of idea that the Rizal was not actually prophesying. Instead, what he was telling in his article was but an analysis, something which was not commonly done in his time. For the patterns he used were commonly for science experiments, where intelligent guesses were made from observation. He just carefully observed the present and past situation of our dear motherland, and from the predicted our future, he fearlessly told the public of the plans of domination of other countries. From my own point of view, these expositions were Rizal's own expressions of three things. First, installing fear in the current regime of Spanish tyranny for them to fly away from the country. Next is the expressing sadness and failure that even if Spain let loose hold of the Philippines, there will be other countries in the world that are ready to take hold of our country. Or maybe Rizal was even giving a hint of hope to the Filipinos that sooner or later a great nation will save their country from the oppressive rule of Spain. That's all. Thank you.